The show today is a great story of friendship. And in that spirit, I would like to recite a poem that was written by my friend Randy Reeman. Randy was my guest on the podcast for episodes 13 and 14. He wrote this poem entitled, A Rare Find. It's a wonderful thing, though it's hard to explain when you meet a new friend on your way. And you know in no time there's a reason behind the ease that your friendship's obtained. For your spirits are one, though your friendship's begun only just a few hours ago. Yet the things that you share and the feeling that's there is more lasting and precious than gold. Well, your talk ran from cattle to horses to shoeing to starting these colts a new way. And before your own eyes, the time has flown by. Adios is the thing you now say. But you sure hate to go, and your feelings, they show on your face as you shake your friend's hand. Still, you know that you're lucky to have this new friend who shares your same love for the land, for horses and cattle, for life in the saddle, and nights underneath a clear sky. The sameness in spirit that goes beyond words. We share that, my new friend and I. As I lift up my head from my old canvas bed, I thank the good Lord for his care and for my new friend. May we soon meet again, for I know that we have much more to share. See, our spirits are one, though our friendship's begun only just a few hours ago. Still, the things that we share and the feeling that's there is more lasting and precious than gold. Howdy folks, this is Andy Hedges, and you're listening to Cowboy Crossroads. On each episode, I interview a different guest and ask them to share stories and discuss music, poetry, and culture from the working cowboy west and beyond. My guest today is Rick Hastie. Rick is a sailor and a horseman, or as he likes to say, a sailor on horseback. Rick is also a longtime friend of Ramblin Jack Elliott's, and he's a part-time road manager for Ramblin Jack. I sat down with Rick during the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada, and asked him to tell me stories about his friendship with Ramblin Jack. Here's Rick Hastie.
I tell you, the first time I ever met Ramblin Jack, it was 28 years ago. I had my big wooden boat hauled out. I was doing a lot of work on it for about a month at a boatyard. And some of my shipwright buddies knew Jack, and I didn't. And I've been working on the boat all day, and I climbed up the ladder to the side of the boat. It was way up high off of the railway. Climbed aboard, and I was making myself some dinner, getting ready to spend the night on it. And I heard a black, 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 black right on the side of the hull, and I heard a "Ahoy, is anybody aboard?" And I went, "Who the hell is that?" You know, he did it in a Ramblin Jack tone of voice. So I climbed up the ladder, the companionway ladder out of the cabin, went out on deck and looked over the side, and I see a guy halfway up the ladder with a cowboy hat on. And he says, "Hi, my name's Jack. I heard you ride cutting horses." And I said, "That's true." And he said, "Well, they call me Ramblin Jack." Now, at the time, I heard of Ramblin Jack, but I didn't really know Ramblin Jack Elliott. So I said, "Well, come on aboard." So he came aboard, and we started talking. And I had a lot of knowledge of horses. I rode cutting horses, and I did some cowboying, but I had a lot of experience with boats, and I was a licensed 100-ton master captain, and Jack was knowledgeable about both things, and he just was passionate about it, and I hit it off with him. And the two of us, you know, I thought we'd talk for 20 or 30 minutes. Well, we were down there, and we weren't even drinking. And we were talking nonstop for 4 hours. Well, that was the beginning of an incredible friendship. Because Jack and I just kind of pop out of each other's lives. It's not like we see each other once a week, but even if 6 months goes by, it's like yesterday. And it's been that way for 28 years. So we've sailed together. We've ridden horses together. We've traveled in my truck because I don't want to drive with him. Not that he's really a bad driver, but he's just a lot slower than I am, and I like to get places. And he loves to go in my truck and drive with me. And when my truck was brand new, my big diesel pickup, we were going to Idaho, and I remember I was on that highway where I could do about 95, and he said, "Rick, will you do me a favor and let me drive your truck?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, Jack." So I pulled over, and he was all excited, and I'm kind of tall and he's short, so we set the seat forward and put his foot on the accelerator, and we slowly got up to about 65. So I'm sitting back there. Now I'm thinking, well, we could go a little faster than this. So I said, "Jack, we can go a little faster than this." So he got up to about 75. So then the problem started. When he got into a story, his foot slowly would come off the accelerator. And I'd say, "Jack, we're doing 45. Step on it." And then he'd put his foot to the floor and the truck would take off. And then the same thing would happen. He'd start in on a story, and it was that accelerator was just going up and down, up. And finally, I couldn't take it any longer. And I said, "Jack, pull over. I'm driving." Well, that's the last time he really drove my truck. I think he was embarrassed. But I remember a time when I was a foreman on a ranch, and it wasn't much of a working ranch. It was just a lot of land when we had horses and stuff, and I just had a little cabin with my wife at the time. And he was doing a gig in Santa Cruz, and he came over. I invited him over for breakfast, and he came over for breakfast, and I was just learning how to play the guitar, and I had a brand new guitar, and I said, "Look, Jack, I'm learning how to play the guitar." He says, "Well, what song are you learning?" And I said, "I'm learning Freight Train." And he goes, "Well, I have the rights to that song." And I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, that was given to me by a blind black woman who wrote that song, and she gave me the rights to it." And I said, "Well, will you play it for me?" And he took my guitar in his hands, and he looked at me and says, "This guitar doesn't know anything. I got to teach it something." So he played Freight Train, sang it. It was classic, and he hasn't sung that song in a long time. So I said, "Hey, Jack, you want to go for a ride on the ranch?" And he said, "I'd love to go for a ride, but I don't know, my hips are pretty bad." This is before he had his new hips put in. And so we went out to the barn, and I saddled the horses, and his hip was so bad I had to kind of lift him up in the saddle. And it takes about 45 minutes to ride to the top meadows of the ranch. And when we started walking out of the barn, the only thing I said was, I just said, "Hey, Jack, when did you learn how to play the guitar?" Well, that question, he started in on a story telling me all about learning how to play the guitar. It lasted to the upper meadows. So it was nonstop ramble for 45 minutes to an hour. And I couldn't believe it. It was, since I've known him for 28 years, I've never recorded any of his stories. And people say, "My God, Rick, I remember them, but I haven't recorded them." And even this trip, I thought, I should get a recorder. And then I thought, big deal. It's just another trip to Elko. Well, it's been non-stop stories for me. If we're not sleeping, he's telling stories. And I'm telling you what, it's the honest to God truth. Very, very few times do I hear the same story over again. He's an amazing man, the way his mind works. I mean, yes, he has a hard time getting to a gig. Yes, he has a hard time cooking and cleaning his house. But he's a genius when it comes to telling stories, remembering people's names, remembering places, remembering all the details of ships and horses and saddles and you name it. He knows it. It's just amazing. And on this trip now to Elko, last night, he really surprised me Whereas I was really concerned because he was going to go on a show with a group of guys, and he had a limited time. He had we figured about 8 to 10 minutes to do this show. And I thought, oh God, we're in trouble. Because he likes to be spontaneous. He doesn't like to rehearse. He just likes to ramble on and do it off the top of his head. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. So I said, Jack, let's go in the kitchen and rehearse. He goes, I don't rehearse, Rick. I said, I think we need to and time this because those guys are counting on you. You can't, just sit there and hog up all the time. He goes, you're right. And in him saying that, that's something about Jack that I've known. And the most important thing to Jack is his friends. And it's their feelings. And it could be even somebody he met in a gas station that he just knows his name. He'll remember that name too. And it's amazing how, and it's not superstars. He's not impressed by anybody who's famous, not at all. He's more impressed with the working guys, especially the working cowboys or sailors or whatever. And those are the people that draw him in. And I think he's been that way since day one. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with fame. And for him, he wants the respect and the friendship from all those people, no matter who it is. And he showed that last night because we went into the kitchen and we rehearsed, and he, asked my advice. I told him what I thought, and he had it condensed and he had it done where he could get it done in 10 minutes. So I said, okay. So when he went on stage and I was looking at my watch, boy, I got worried. But this is the genius of Jack. He started out and he started talking about himself. And he started talking about his little rodeo episodes. And he started talking about, some friends. And I'm going, oh, no. Well, all of a sudden, he took it to the right spot. And this is his genius off the top of his head. He took it right where he could flip it right into what the whole theme was about. And then he got into the song, that he wasn't playing his guitar, he was just reciting it. The Knot in the Devil's Tail? Is that the correct title? Yeah.
Tie Knots in the Devil's
Tail. The famous
Peaks.
song, the Sour Peaks and all that. And he did it with so much passion and so much energy. I was blown away because, he was swinging his arms around and wiggling in the chair, and he's 84. Well, he doesn't say he's 84 years old. He's 74 years old, but he's 84 years old. And his shoulders bother him, but he got into it. And I was so impressed and proud of him because he really pulled it off. He really cowboyed up, and afterwards he was tickled. And then I let him loose, and we got a little wild last night. But I'll tell you something. Jack's he's a very different person, and he's a one of a kind, and he's somebody that when he's gone, I've never met a human being like him. One time, this is 10 years ago, we were getting ready to go to Elko, and I had a limited time because I was building a big piece of property and stuff. And I went to pick him up for Elko, and it was about 8 o'clock at night. We're going to get a late start. And I knocked on the door, and nobody answered. And I think, where the heck's Jack? Because he's all excited about going to Elko. So I go inside, and here he is sitting in his underpants, in a chair, not packed, with a look on his face. I said, Jack, what are you doing? We're going to Elko. He looks at me with a sad look and goes, Rick, I got cancer. And I looked at him, and I thought, wait a minute, don't react yet, Rick. And I studied him, and I noticed he had a bandage on his arm, his upper arm. And I said, what kind of cancer? And he goes, I got skin cancer. And I knew it was just, he just had a biopsy or something, And I said, okay, Jack. And I leaned over real close to him, because he's real sad looking. And I said, Jack, so you got cancer. You got 1 week to live. Want to go to Elko? And he looked at me like a 5-year-old. Hell yes, I want to go to Elko. I said, well, damn it, get packed. Well, if you've ever tried to pack with Jack, whoa. Basically, you just got to take everything you can and just throw it in the truck because he he can't organize a thing. So we threw everything in there, even the bedroll. He want, we had a hotel room. I got to bring my bedroll, the whole bit. So we take off, and it's at night, and we're driving in my diesel pickup, and he's not saying a word. Now, if anybody knows Ramblin Jack, that's very rare. So we headed out 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Still hadn't said a word. So I'm listening to music. Normally, I'm not listening to too much music when Jack's there because he's talking the whole time. So we go over the Sierras. We drop in to the desert, get through Reno and all that, and we're almost to Winnemucca. And I see him, and he's looking out the windows of the truck, and he's sketching. He's like sketching the mountains. And I'm going, whoa, this is very different. And he all of a sudden, he looks at me and goes, Rick, I've made this trip maybe 28 times or whatever. I never noticed how beautiful it is. And I said, Jack, that's because you've been talking the whole time. And he started laughing, and he went into a conversation with me, and it was like, bam, he woke up. And, and it was very touching because right after he came out of his, whatever you want to, his trance, we had a little discussion about something because the year before, or 2 years before that, he only could do half a show because I guess he had a little glass of whiskey on the side of the stage, which he thought, hey, cowboys do that, and he was taking sips out of it. Well, he's a small man, and he can't drink that much whiskey, and he was showing the signs, slurring his words a little bit, and so I think the people, there's kids in the audience, so they made a decision to not let him come on in the second show, and Waddy had to, bring him up to his room. Well, that devastated Jack. He knew he really screwed up. And they didn't invite him back the next year. So the year that I was taking him across the desert, they invited him back. So I said, okay, Rick, you got to do this. He's a good friend of yours. You got to be frank with him. So I said, Jack, I'm going to say something as a friend. When you drink and you're drunk and you go on stage and you perform, you're terrible. You're bad. I mean, I can't stand watching you. And he looked at me, and he said, nobody's ever said that to me. And I said, well, I'm your friend, and I'm going to say that to you. And he said, wow. And I said, so will you allow me to help you get through this and do good shows? And he said, yes. I gave him some sign language. I said, when somebody offers you a drink, I'm going to give you the no. And, hey, look, do a good show. After the show, if you don't have another show, rip it up. I don't care. I'll be standing by your side. You don't get in trouble, but go ahead. But when you're going to do a show, let's make a deal. You're going to be straight, sober, and you're going to warm up a little bit, and you're going to do a good show. He goes, okay. So it really worked. But he tricked me because it was okay because he didn't have a show. But the last night, I wanted to go to the dance, and I had these two gals that I had lined up, and I said to Jack, we're in the motel room, and he was sitting in the bathtub, just hanging out in the bathtub, and I said, hey, Jack, you want to go to the dance with me tonight? I got two gals. He goes, Rick, I'm really tired. We've had a long week. I think I'm going to sit in the bathtub for a while, and I think I'm just going to put on my pajamas or whatever and go to bed. I said, okay, Jack, that's fine. So I went out and went to the dance. I had these two girls who went to the Stray Dog, and we whooped it up and danced and drank whiskey. And it was about 3 a.m. It was snowing out, and this guy comes over to me and says, aren't you Ramblin Jack's handler? And I said, yeah, but, Jack's back. He's not out tonight. He's in the hotel, and he took a bath, and he's sleeping. He goes, the hell if he is. I said, what? He goes, he's over at the Stockman's drinking tequila and playing music. And I went, that son of a bitch. And I said, the hell with him. Let him go. I'm done. So, but that's Jack. He can be sneaky, too. He can be disciplined, but boy, he's sneaky. And he knows how to quickly sneak away, But I love the man. He's a treasure and a dear, dear friend. And I'll do one more little story about him for our relationship, how I know him, and what, how we deal with each other is, I play a little guitar, and I've been only playing for about 3 years and sing about 30 songs or so, and do not consider myself a musician, but I can play. And I went over to see Jack one day at his house, and I sat down, and we were just talking a little bit, and there was a beautiful Gibson guitar that I've never seen before. It was brand new. It was laying on the floor right out of the case, and I looked at it, and Jack said, "Pick that guitar up, Rick." So I picked it up, and he says, "That neck fits your hand. It doesn't fit mine. Jerry Jeff Walker gave me that. He just sent that to me, and it fit my hand really good." So I started picking on it, and I was finger picking "Sky Above the Mud Below" by Tom Russell, and I do that song, and Jack's recorded that song. So I'm playing it, and I'm going to do about the first verse, and Jack picks up his Martin, and he starts picking, and so he sings the second verse, and I start to sing the third verse, and all of a sudden we kind of looked at each other in the eyes and just went into it, laughing and crying, just in hysterics, and stopped playing. And I looked at him and said, "Are you laughing at what I'm laughing at?" And he says, "I think so, Rick." He says, "We don't have a musical relationship. We like boats and horses and things that move." And and that was it. We've never played since. Now, I'll tune his guitar, but we never play together. And we never even really talk about music. He might ask me a little, "How did the show go?" or "What do you think of that?" or what, a little bit, even though whatever I say, I don't know if it ever matters or not. But that's about it with music. Everything for he and I, it's all about, boats or horses or, ranch style or friends, things like that. And we have a wonderful relationship based on he has a great deal of respect for me, and I have a great deal of respect for him. And we have never in 28 years, never had an argument. We've never had anything where, "Well, I'm not talking to you" or anything. It's just been wonderful. And the only thing of recordings that I've ever saved is on my phone. I always save his messages because how he rambles. Well, you would not believe the phone messages that I get that last, if it beeps, he'll call me again and continue the story. So sometimes it's a 3-beeper or whatever, but I treasure him, and he's getting older, and it's every day's a gift, but then he knows it. But this cowboy gathering it spurs him up, man. It gets him going where he wants to do another 11 months or whatever and come back here. He looks forward. That's what he lives for. He just lives for all these friends, and it's not even him getting on stage. I mean, he loves the audience and he loves people, to clap and love his stuff, but it's the friends. It's for him to see his old friends and new friends and young people. He loves the young people, and that's what Jack's all about. So, as his friend, I'm proud to be his friend. I don't think of him as a legend. I never have, and I just don't think of him that way. So when I see people, when I'm around him and they're all gawking around him and stuff, I enjoy, for him, they just get in the attention. But I just think of him in a different way. And I'm very, very lucky that I can be there for him and help him get through this stuff. And it's an honor. And that's about it, I guess.
Thanks for taking the time to visit with me. That's great stories about Jack.
Yeah. Well, Andy, Jack loves you. That's for sure. And guys like you, it gets him, he told me last night, he says, "Not Andy and these young guys, they're taking over, and they're they respect us and we respect them, and they're fabulous." And the thing is, he really does listen, and he really does notice, and he does make comments, about your guitar playing or what you're all about. With Mike Beck, how he said, Mike Beck was always good, but now he's too good. He says, "I'm going to have to open for him," and he loves it. He has no competition at all in his veins. He doesn't, he's not like, "Oh, I want to be up here." No, not at all. He's not that way. Like he said, years ago, just get up, play a little guitar, tell a story, and you're done, and that's kind of Jack. That's what he's about.
All right, folks, that's it for this episode. I'd like to thank Rick Hastie for taking the time to visit with me and for telling me those great stories about Ramblin Jack. If you'd like to find out more about Ramblin Jack Elliott, you can visit ramblinjack.com. If you'd like to find out more about me and this show, you can visit andyhedges.com. If you'd like to help me keep this show going, you can make a donation on my website, or you could leave me a 5-star rating and a review in the iTunes store. That helps a lot more people find the show, and I really appreciate it. Or you could just tell a friend about the show, someone who you think might enjoy giving it a listen. If you'd like to send me a question or a comment or tell me a story, I'd love to hear from you. Send an email to andy@andyhedges.com. Thank you for listening to Cowboy Crossroads.